Good day. I am Atcha Sunshine S, and together with me is Baman Katrina, Gilirawan Kianjin, Kinol Rufame, and Sabilio Chalajay. Today, we will be discussing about agrarian reform policies. There has been a big change in the distribution of the land to the landless farmers. And the agrarian reform is one of the most important discussion that we should talk about. Come and let's work together towards change for agrarian reform. Here are the objectives of our lesson. First, to identify the different agrarian reform policies in the time of President Manuel A. Rojas, President Elpidio R. Quirino, President Ramon Magsaysay, and President Carlos P. Garcia. Second, at the end of this lesson, the student can effectively respond to the different question about the different laws enacted regarding to the agrarian reform policies by the following presidents. Third, they can effectively explain their historical study of a certain event or issue utilizing a variety of strategies and genres that may aid others in understanding the chosen topic. Okay, let's move forward to the agrarian reform policies of four different presidents. President Manuel A. Rojas, 1946 to 1948. President Elpidio R. Quirino, 1948 to 1953. President Ramon Magsaysay, 1953 to 1957. And lastly, President Carlos P. Garcia, 1957 to 1961. Before discussing the different policies of presidents, let us know first what is agrarian reform. The verb reform indicates the action of redoing, modifying, amending, or reforming something. Agrarian is what belongs to or relative to countryside. The term is also used to refer the policy that defends the interests of the public sector. The fusion of these concepts in that of agrarian reform is used to talk about a set of economic, social, political, and legislative measures that serve to modify the ownership and production structure of the land. The Philippine Agrarian Reform Program encompasses much more than land redistribution and support services and covers following additional components: the land transfer activities, land settlement, leasehold operations, stock distribution options, production and profit sharing, development of beneficiaries, and land use conversion. Furthermore, agrarian reform program sought to redistribute land not only to farmers and farm workers, but also to other landless poor. The primary aim or purpose of agrarian reform program is to provide landowners equality in terms of income and opportunities, empower landowner beneficiaries to have equitable land ownership, enhance agricultural production and productivity, provide employment to more agricultural workers, and put an end to conflicts regarding land ownership. Philippine Republic or the New Republic. After the establishment of the Philippine independence in 1946, the problems of land tenure remained. These became worse in certain areas. Thus, the Congress of the Philippines revised the tenancy law.
After Philippine independence was proclaimed by the Americans in 1946, the problem of land tenure remained the terrorism done by the members of Hukbalahap. Too many towns in the country, the guardian situation became worse in certain areas, particularly in Luzon. To address this, President Manuel Rojas initiated the enactment of the following laws. First, Republic Act No. 34, which established the 70-30 arrangements and regulating shared tenancy contracts giving much harvest of plants to tenants. Unfortunately, the implementation of the law was confronted with problems due to lack supportive facilities and capital. The farmers were forced to resell their lands to the landowners. This failure gave basis to doubt of the real meaning of land reform program. among common Filipino people. The second law is Republic Act No. 55, provided for a more effective safeguard against arbitrary ejectment of tenants. Second Republic Act, which provided a more effective safeguard against arbitrary eviction of tenants from their lands. It was, however, unfortunate that President Rojas died because of heart attack that was replaced by his Vice President Elpidio Quirino.
When President Manuel Rojas died on April 15, 1948, Quirino succeeded him as President of the Republic. For his weakness in tolerating rampant graft and corruption in his party, permitting immorality in the armed forces, and neglecting the impoverished plight of the majority of Filipinos, he was very unpopular, and in 1953 he was defeated by Ramon Magsaysay. Elpidio Rivera Quirino was a Filipino lawyer and politician who served as the sixth president of the Philippines from 1948 to 1953. A lawyer by profession, Quirino entered politics when he became a representative of Ilocos Sur from 1919 to 1925. He was then elected as a senator from 1925 to 1935. He was a senator in the 1st Senatorial District, Ilocos Sur representative in 1919 to 1925, elected to the President's Senate from 7th to 10th Legislature in 1925 to 1935. In 1934, he helped secure the Tidings-McDuffie Act. He was one of the drafters of the 1935 Philippine Constitution, delegate in the Constitutional Convention in 1934 to 1935, a Secretary of Finance in Governor Murphy and Quezon Administration, Secretary of Interior in Quezon Administration. He became a senator in 1941, and in April 1942, the Philippines were captured by Japanese imperial forces. Elpidio Quirino refused to join the Japanese-sponsored puppet government of Jose P. Laurel, leader of Majority Liberal Party and Senate President pro tempore from 1945 to 1946, Vice President and concurrent Secretary of Finance in 1946, and the Secretary of Foreign Affairs in Rojas' administration. He was the Vice President of Manuel Rojas in 1946 and became a President on April 17, 1948, sworn into office at Council State Room and Executive Building, Malacañang Palace on April 17, 1948, and Independence Grandstand on December 30, 1949. In 1949, he was elected as president for a 4-year term as candidate of the Liberal Party. President Elpidio Quirino's first law enacted was called Minimum Wage Law. On June 3, 1939, the 8-hour workday law was enacted. During President Elpidio Quirino's term on April 4, 1951, Republic Act 602, the minimum wage law was enacted. Social welfare. On August 12, 1948, President Elpidio Quirino created the Presidential Action Committee on Social Amelioration, or called PACSA, to effect socio-economic reforms on the countryside to counteract social unrest that was then plaguing the government. In 1951, the Social Welfare Commission and PACSA were merged by virtue of Executive Order No. 396 and became the Social Welfare Administration, or SWA. SWA was primarily charged with the proper enforcement of the laws and regulations relative to the relief and other social services, and with the administration of all charitable and relief agencies, including institutions for care of the aged and/or infirm and dependent, defective and/or delinquent children supported wholly or partly by the government. This is now known today as the Department of Social Welfare and Development. Social Security System. On July 7, 1948, President Elpidio Quirino created a Social Security Commission, precursor of SSS, his first official act as president. This commission drafted the Social Security Act that was submitted to Congress. However, it was only on September 1, 1957, that the Social Security Act of 1954, or the Social Security Law, SS Law, was finally implemented, adopting the social insurance approach to Social Security, covering the employed segment of the labor force in private sector. Executive Order Number 355. This law was enacted during the Agrarian Reform, issued on October 23, 1950. Replaced the National Land Settlement Administration with Land Settlement Development Corporation or LADESCO, which takes over the responsibilities of the Agricultural Machinery Equipment Corporation and the Rice and Corn Production Administration. Republic Act Number 348. This is an act authorizing His Excellency Elpidio Quirino, President of the Republic of the Philippines, to accept the Order of the Grand Cordon of the Order of Propitious Clouds offered to him by the Chinese government when he was Vice President of the Philippines. Contrasting to the treatment towards Hukbalahap members during Rojas' administration, he vindicated them during his term. He granted amnesty to them on June 21, 1948. Besides concluding peace with Japan, Quirino did many achievements during his term. Industrial ventures heightened, irrigation improved, and the road system developed. He also set up the central bank and rural banking.
Ramon Magsaysay, one of the charismatic leaders when it comes to Philippine presidents, was Ramon Magsaysay. Before being elected to office, Magsaysay became a guerrilla congressman and a defense secretary. Magsaysay has numerous achievements during his administration. His administration was considered one of the cleanest and most corruption-free. His presidency was cited as the Philippines' golden years. Trade and industry flourished, the Philippine military was at its prime, and the Filipino people were given international recognition in sports, culture, and foreign affairs. The Philippines ranked second in Asia's clean and well-governed countries. Magsaysay brought his government closer to people, especially when opened the gates of Malacanang to the masses. Land Reform Program of Ramon Magsaysay. This study shows that the Land Reform Program of Ramon Magsaysay was a consolidation of his gains as Secretary of National Defense and that it was a sincere effort to improve the condition of the peasantry that prevented the rise of serious peasant unrest. Despite its being a pioneering effort, within a short span of 4 years, Magsaysay laid down the foundation of a solution to a problem that has existed for decades or even centuries. Despite its weaknesses, the land reform program of Magsaysay changed the course of Philippine history. Indeed, it formed the beginning of a serious attempt on the part of the government at liberating the peasantry from bondage to the institutions that had been used for their exploitation. The establishment of peace and order has been a quest that had long been pursued from the Spanish times to the present, especially in central Luzon, which was the focus of this study. Ramon Magsaysay 1953 to 1957 enacted the followings: Republic Act Number 1160 of 1954 abolished the Ladisico and established the National Resettlement and Rehabilitation Administration to resettle descendants and landless farmers. It was particularly aimed at rebel returnees providing homelands and farmlands in Palawan and Mindanao. Republic Act Number 1199, Agricultural Tenancy Act of 1954, governed the relationship between landowners and tenant farmers by organizing shared tenancy and leasehold system. The law provided the security of tenure of tenants. It also created the Court of Agrarian Relations. Republic Act Number 1400, Land Reform Act of 1955, created the Land Tenure Administration, which was responsible for the acquisition and distribution of large tenanted rice and corn lands over 200 hectares for individuals and 600 hectares for corporations. Republic Act Number 821, creation of Agricultural Credit Cooperative Financing Administration. provided small farmers and share tenants loans with low interest rates of 6 to 8%.
And now, let's proceed to President Carlos P. Garcia. Carlos P. Garcia continued the program of President Ramon Magsaysay. No legislation passed. President Carlos P. Garcia served as the fourth president of the Philippines from 1957 to 1961 and was a protege of President Ramon Magsaysay, the country's third leader. Under his leadership, he continued many of Magsaysay's programs, which were popularly referred to as Filipino First. Initiatives that emphasized local culture and put Philippine economic growth above all else. Despite Garcia's good intentions, he did not pass any new legislation while in office and mainly focused on preserving Magsaysay's legacy. During his tenure, President Garcia focused primarily on maintaining Magsaysay's agenda and programs instead of introducing new legislation, helping to solidify and sustain the progress that had already been made. He was praised for his courage and integrity as he worked diligently to maintain high moral standards during his time in office. To this end, Garcia focused heavily on national development, especially when it came to land reform policies aimed at providing farmers with much needed access to better resources for their work. His presidency set the stage for later successes under Ferdinand Marcos, who succeeded him after winning the 1965 presidential election. Despite lacking major legislative accomplishments, Garcia's dedication to ethical governance inspired trust among citizens who saw him as an honorable leader with whom they could relate. His hard-working approach showed through even when considering budgetary measures such as promoting exports while increasing imports at reduced taxes in order to expand global trade opportunities without being reliant upon foreign sources of aid or interventionism. Ultimately, his commitment towards Filipino over external forces led to greater domestic support for self-reliance and served as an important foundation for later administrations moving forward.
In conclusion, our topic, agrarian reform, informs us about the various incidents and other significant historical events that occurred from the pre-Spanish period to the Philippine Republic. It sought to redistribute land not only to farmers but also to other landless poor. On the other hand, we all understood who are the presidents that served our country and what policies were commanded at the time, as well as the various agrarian resource policies.
This is our